So that show, I played a character, and I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but something very sad happens. So in that scene, it was very lucky that I didn't have any flaps. I was able to just really act it out, and at that time, I had come straight from the theater, so I was very intent on making it as real as possible. I wanted to cry, so I got really into it, and I started crying, and the director, when we were all done, the director stopped and goes, okay, I'm gonna play that back for you so that you can hear why you can't do that. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm being totally method. I'm a freaking actor. Hello, I was crying. There was snot coming out of my nose. It had to be fabulous, right? So he played it back, and this is all you heard. And I was like horrified because I had never been in front of a mic. I had never been taught mic technique. And so what I thought was a really legitimate, awesome, like cry, tear-filled, wonderful performance ended up sounding like poo-poo. So I learned very quickly that you have to faux cry. The emotions can still be there, but it can't actually come out in a big snotty mess. You can still cry, as long as they can understand what you're saying. Once it gets to the point, then you can't do it. So you have to learn how to place it in your throat. So here's the trick to that. The first thing you want to do you guys know about the different places you can place your voice? This is a very actory thing, and it gets a little weird. But like, there's different places you can kind of try to move your voice around that'll give it different sounds. So like if you kind of put your head back and kind of stretch your neck out, you see how all of a sudden it kind of like goes back in the back of your throat? That's one place. So if you're trying to cry and you don't want to sound like a slobbery mess, that's one of the tricks, is you put it in the back of your throat. And then all you have to do on top of that is add a little bit of a quiver, like a little bit of a shake on the voice. So I could be talking about this being like the best day I've ever had, but because I'm talking in the back of my throat, and I've added this little bit of quiver on my voice, it sounds like I'm totally about to cry. But you know what? I'm not about to cry. I'm totally happy. It's totally okay. And then you add in the sniffles and whatnot that are snot-free. And so you kind of learn to use your tool, your voice, to achieve these things. And I've had people say, well, that's not real. I'm like, it's still real, but that's the thing about being an anime voice actor, is that you have to learn how to, I call it acting with restrictions. Because not only are you acting, you have to fit the flaps, you have to fit the timing of the entire scene, you have to respond to a person that's not there, you have to keep the voice, you have to keep whatever notes the director's given you, and do all of this in this truncated amount of time with a script you just saw right now. And you have no idea where it's going. So it's a little difficult. So you have to learn how to use your voice sometimes to help you portray things that you weren't expecting. So that's crying. It's back in the throat, a little bit of quiver. You will convince anyone over the phone that you are very upset. Especially if you put the breath in there, then you're good. I'm telling you, try it on your parents. I couldn't do it when I was in high school. I wish I could have. Oh, I would have been a horrible child. Let's see, what else can we discuss? I usually have like a printout for this thing, and I have come to this con totally unorganized. Yeah. Well, we went over the punching a little bit. So, you know, I would tell guys when they got punched, or any kind of fight sequences, let's say. Of course, you can't go all out because you are kind of, like I said, you have this amount of room to move. But you can actually punch as long as you don't punch anything or punch so hard that your face hits the mic, because that hurts. And there's a pop screen that catches everybody's spittle, and you don't want that in your face. Just gonna put that out there. It's usually clean, but still. So you can punch and move around, but the main thing is the reactions. I find that a lot of people can make a punching noise, like a ugh kind of noise, but people can't get punched. And I think that's good, because that means they probably have never been punched. Good thing. But
what it is that you need to be able to feel the reaction. There needs to be a bit of a jolt. And at Funimation, we do the beep system. So you have 3 beeps, and you speak on an imaginary 4th beep. So what I always do is imagine that on that first beep is the pullback, 2nd beep is the punch, 3rd beep is the shock, because whenever somebody gets punched, they don't automatically go, bah! Because it's like you have to have that moment of realizing what's happening. These are quick beeps. And then that last one is the, holy cow, you just punched me. And the point with the punching or slapping, even there's a lot of slapping. They like to slap girls. I don't know what that's about. Is it comes from the gut. It's that same kind of feeling, but instead of it being full force, you kind of hold back a little bit, so you still have that kind of thing. But you also want to turn your head to whichever way you're being slapped or hit. Because even though it's so minute and it may sound like it wouldn't matter, when you hear it in playback, if I just go, or if I go, like there's a difference in the intensity and there's a difference in the sound, and that'll play back. Like now, especially when I was directing, when I would listen to other anime, I could tell who was sitting down when they recorded. I could tell who didn't move when they were recording, because after a while, you start to get used to that. So punching stuff, your best bet, sound like you're puking. And then just kind of modify it from there. And directors are really good about telling you what they want. Another good thing is screams. Screams can be rough because they hurt, right? Nobody wants to scream all day long. That kind of sucks. So there are 2 different types of screams that you will find that directors want. And they usually vary greatly from one to another. One is a really clean scream. And that means that there's not going to be any like gurgly stuff in the middle. So if I scream for a clean scream director, it would be like that kind of thing. If I do a more realistic scream, which is like Mad Greenfield, which is the kind of stuff I like, which is how you would really scream, it's a little gross, but it's more realistic, and that's going to go something like, right? Something that's got like different tones and snot and all kinds of stuff in it that's really gross, but says, I'm in pain, as opposed to, I'm in pain. But some directors don't like all of that gravel and stuff, so you have to do. Hey, you were on the money, man. You're right. In fact, there's many a time, there's a director, Don Rush, who used to make us do things like 20 times anyway, but and for screams, he was known for that. He was known that if you had even a little bit of in your scream, he would make you do it again until you had perfect scream. I'm like, nobody screams like that. If Jason's coming after you, you're not gonna go. You're gonna go. I'm like, that's just not real. But whatever. So screaming, the main point is breath support. Are any of you guys singers? Or do a little karaoke on the evenings, or anything? One of the best things to learn is breath support, which you learn in taking vocal classes. Because it teaches you to breathe from what is called your diaphragm. I feel like a vocal instructor.
Most drama teachers teach that at first.
Right, and a lot of voice teachers, like when you go to college and stuff, or doctors, they'll teach you to breathe from the diaphragm.
Voice therapy.
Yeah, exactly. The difference is that if you breathe from the chest, like you'll feel your chest move, but it's a more shallow breath. If you breathe from your diaphragm, like if you put your hand here, you'll be able to see it. Move. And basically what that means is you're taking in a big breath of air down here, as opposed to up here where your shoulders are gonna go up. That gives you support to speak longer without getting winded, to be able to scream, to be able to make all of these noises. Because if you're breathing from the chest, you're going to run out of air really quickly. So teach yourself how to do that, or study up on that. I'm sure there's a YouTube video, because there's a YouTube video of everything. But if you breathe from the diaphragm, screaming actually isn't as bad, and it's not going to hurt your voice as much. We had a couple actresses that are phenomenal that don't breathe from the diaphragm, and they ended up like doing a couple of shows where they lost their voice for like a week. And in voiceover, like a week of no work is bad, because that means that you might have been recast on some stuff, or you can't audition for new stuff, and it's just not a good thing.
Or is it postponed?
That we rarely postpone. There's not a whole lot of time, unfortunately. It's on a quick schedule because they want to get it out to you guys as fast as possible, and they're only one small step in the giant deal that is getting anime to the United States. So we try to get it out as fast as possible, but the breathing certainly will help you in every respect. Another thing to talk about, and then I'm going to open it up to questions, is critters. Who doesn't love critters?
I love them.
He's really excited about it. Who doesn't love critters? All right. By critters, that's a very Texas thing to say. By meaning like animals and little people that run around that aren't human that look really cute and make funny noises. I end up playing a lot of critters because I have a weird voice, and that's okay. Little girls and critters, it's good. The thing about voicing any animal in particular is that they don't have to sound like the animal. Like a lot of actors will come in and audition for a pig and they'll go, oink, oink, oink. I'm like, I don't think pigs actually say oink. Could be wrong, but sure. So then you're like, we'll make more of the noise, and then I'm like, okay, well that's a start. I mean, like I voiced Pen Pen in Evangelion, and Karu in One Piece, and TP, yeah. But does Karu sound like a duck particularly?
No, he's like,
Yeah, he's kind of angry too. He's got a princess on his back all day long. He's probably pretty deep. So, and Pen Pen too, like I don't know what a penguin sounds like particularly. I've never talked to one. But I do know that he gets very upset. And so what I did is try to find noises that I thought reflected the movement and the expressions of the character as opposed to worrying about what a penguin sounds like or what a duck sounds like. Especially with Karu in One Piece, he has these giant flaps. So I can't just go quack. So I'd have to figure out ways to go quack, kind of weird, bizarre things. This segues into, if you want to be a voice actor, you can't be afraid to make an ass out of yourself. Because you're going to end up looking stupid. There's nothing you can do about it. Nobody's going to judge you for it. But when you go in to record, this is actually a pretty good setup here. The booths are usually about, let's say, the size of this table. So I'm in here, I'm the actor, I've got my microphone. My engineer and director, the people that are working with me, are probably where that black tape is, right there? Yeah, or right in front of me, depending on the studio.
Or in front of you.
So they're only like 4 feet away, and you're in front of a giant window. So you can't pick your nose, you can't pick a wedgie, you can't do any of that because they're right there. Which means that if you accidentally fling snot across the room or spit on the TV or whatever may happen in the weirdness that is voice acting, they're gonna hear it. So you have to be willing to just be insane. If there's a duck on the screen and you need to make it sound like an angry duck, you will make all the crazy noises in the world to make sure that crazy duck sounds like a crazy duck. Same thing with crazy penguin, whether or not it sounds like a penguin. And then with the characters that have voices like Teepee's a good example, or what's another one? The little characters that always say their own name.
Pokemon?
Or Pikachu, yeah, maybe a Pokemon, yeah, that's true. Those guys are a little easier because at least you know what they're saying. You don't have to come up with any kind of weird noises for them. But you still have to think of the intent behind it. Sometimes those can be some of the hardest characters because even though you're only saying one word, it still has to convey different meanings. So even if I'm saying, TP, that's a very happy TP. But what if TP is upset? I can't say, TP. You know what I mean? It has to be, TP. Or something along those lines. So there's a lot of playing in the studio. You're constantly in the studio trying different things. It's all about experimenting and stuff. But yes, don't be afraid to look like an idiot because it will happen and it's okay. And everyone will still love you. I'm going to go ahead and open it to 2 questions. Yes?
What's Don Rochford up to, speaking of which?
Do what?
What's Don Rochford up to nowadays?
Oh, I don't know what Don Rush is doing. I think he went back to advertising. He came from advertising to be a director at ADV, and I think he went back to advertising.
What about Vic?
What about her?
Vic.
Oh, Vic?
Yeah, what is he doing now?
Oh, I don't know. He's in LA. I know he's about to have a birthday. He's about to be 50.
Oh, God!
What do you do?
Still playing 12-year-old boys.
Huh? Hey, dude, I'm probably gonna be 60 and playing little girls. I'm telling you, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, I have the opposite problem of most voice actresses. Like most voice actresses, as they get older, their voices get lower because you're using it so much. Its natural instinct is to go lower.
Like Tatum?
Sure, but he's not a girl. For most women, it starts to get lower as you age or whatever. I have been playing little girls and critters so much that I have the opposite problem. My voice, as I get older, is actually getting higher, which means that I'm going to be a 60-year-old woman going, "Hi, kids, let's all you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine it getting any higher than it is now, because in my head, it's probably 2 octaves lower than what you guys are hearing. So I can't even imagine. Your ears have to be bleeding. If not, they will be soon. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it under. I'm trying to keep it under control. Like you can hear me. Like I'm trying to do my best teenager voice. Because normally when I get excited, it's which is yeah. So yeah, I mean it just happens, especially when you're voice acting as much as we do. Your voice does weird things. Colleen Klinkenbeard is my best friend. But besides that, she's been doing Luffy in One Piece for quite a while now. And Colleen's always been known as this voice, a very, very sexy voice. She always plays these lovely, beautiful people. Well, now she's been doing Luffy so long that when she goes back to do the sexy voices, she's like, all of a sudden they kind of sound like men trying to be women. And I'm sure it's just because her voice is tired, because when you're talking like this all day, you know what I mean? Like that's really rough on the voice. So she's having to deal with that right now, and she spends her free time clearing her throat and drinking lots of hot tea with lemon, so that when, if One Piece ever ends, she's not left with just this voice. I'm king of the pirates, and that's all I can do. So it's rough, especially when you're working on certain shows. I notice that when I do lower voices, my voice tends to be a little bit lower, which is nice, and I dig that. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen as much as what I like. So yeah, you never know what it's gonna do, and so Vic will probably be playing teenagers forever. Yes?
What was it like playing Simca from Air Gear?
Oh, Simca was rad. Didn't like her haircut, but
I liked it with the long hair.
I know everybody did. I don't know why she wouldn't cut it.
Why?
I know. That show was a lot of fun. It was John Swayze was the director, and he's a great director because being an actor himself, he kind of gives you liberties to try different things that you wouldn't normally do. And that's always fun when you get in the booth. You don't want somebody that's going to there's already so much to think about when you're voice acting. The last thing you want is a director that's going to tell you, this has to be like this, and you have to do that, and you have to hit this word, and don't do this, and blah, 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 blah. Because you've already got 20 things going on in your head. Now you've got 40, so it's hard to make that performance sound good. So it's kind of nice to have a director like him that just goes, ah. So that one was a lot of fun. It was a great show, too. I really liked it. I can't rollerblade. She could. Yes.
If you could, let's say you had control to sort of bring in any voice actor you wanted for your favorite anime, who would you pick?
To work with as a director?
To work with as a director.
Kent Williams. Hands down. I love all of my voice actor allies and comrades. They're all brilliant. But Kent Williams, you guys, I'm sure you've heard him 10 times over. You just wouldn't know it because he's...
One Piece.
Oh, he's done One Piece, done so many things. And he's got this fantastic voice. That's just this manly man voice, but it's very smooth. He's the nicest man you have ever met in your entire life. Hands down. Nicest guy, and he'll do anything. He's up for anything. There was one time, I think it was Kenichi. He plays one of the senseis in Kenichi, and he had this line that was written and it had no pause in it. The flaps just kept going, so there was nowhere for him to breathe. And I was like, well, Kent, if you have to, like, just take a breath in the middle and, you know, we'll digitally edit it out because you have to be able, you can't say the end of the line like this, you know? So just don't worry about it, just say it. He goes, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And he did that whole line without taking a breath, a single breath. And he did it fantastically, and he's amazing, and I love him. Kent Williams. Hand in the back.
How did you feel playing
Belarus. Belarus was awesome. I didn't audition for Belarus. For some reason, whenever a psycho comes up at Funimation, I'm like, Monica! She's perfect in psychos. No, I think what it was with that one, I played Flying Mint Bunny first. So I did Flying Mint Bunny, and I was like, sweet, this is fun. This is easy, yeah. And then Flying Mint Bunny got Mad Love, and I was like, really? For 2 lines? Sweet. But Scott Sager, the original director, called me and he goes, I need you to start looking at, I was in the studio. He goes, I think you need to start looking at the Belarus accent. And I was like, the what accent? Belarus. What is that? I had no idea where it was. I had no idea what's going on. Hate to cloud my ignorance, but it's true. I had no idea, so I had to study, I had to do all my research on Belarus and figure out how they spoke. And please don't judge that on the Ask an Anime Character panel, because I started to sound like my Hispanic father. I was like, this is hard. But it was fun. It was fun to get to study an accent and have to keep it up. And she's crazy, and I love the crazies. They're so much fun. Yes?
Can you tell us about the Travis Willingham tequila story?
I just did it yesterday, and I tell you what, you guys, there's 20, probably 50 videos on YouTube. Like, seriously. Here's the thing that's funny, is that, like, it happened probably before you were born. No, it happened like 7 years ago, and for years we didn't hear anything about it. And then, like, through anime folklore, it has come back around, and I'm like, holy. But long story short, I can't describe this. What? No. Yes.
How was it playing Rena Tapas?
Oh, that one was awesome. Dance in the Vampire Bund, if you guys haven't seen it. That one was awesome because I was the script adapter for that show. I did not.
Wait, did what?
Use an alias? Is that what you did?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
I did not. Because I was the adapter also. So I'm like, if my name's already attached, then I don't care. I'm not the one doing it. My agent always calls whenever there are booby shows, as we call them. She goes, now I need to warn you, there is some nudity in the show. I'm like, boobies? She's like, yeah, they're not mine. She goes, well, no. I'm like, well, then I want to audition. As long as I don't have to show my boobies, I don't care. So I'm voicing a character. My voice will come out of somebody's face showing their boobies. Who cares? Sure. But for that one, that's an interesting, and I wish I had talked about this yesterday in that script adapting panel. That was the first time that Funimation ever came to me as an adapter and said, we have a little problem. And I was like, okay, well, what is this problem? There's a little scene that we're having some issue with, and we need you to take a little bit of a liberty with it. And I was like, what kind of liberty? So there's this scene, now if you guys don't know what it is, it's about like this woman, Mina Tepesh, who is of the Tepesh line of vampires, and she's like 500 bajillion, God only knows, years old. However, because of unfortunate circumstances, she chooses the body of a high schooler, which they animate like a 10-year-old girl. It's Japan, you know. So she falls in love with another high school boy who is 17, but instead of animating him like they did her, they animate him like a full-grown man, because it's Japan. So what happens is there's a scene where they're out and it's the sunlight. She has this lotion she needs to put on so that she doesn't fry. So in the Japanese, she hands him the lotion, she strips down, and she goes, okay, put it on me, and he starts getting excited. And breathing heavily, and it was very weird.
almost censored that scene.
Oh no, we didn't censor it.
No, I said they almost did.
Well, that's when they brought me in, because they don't want to censor, like, they never want to censor
I
stuff.
know.
So they told me, they're like, here's what we're going to do. We need you to change that scene. So all I did,
Slightly.
it was so easy, actually. Once I got down to it, I was like, oh, this isn't hard at all. The only difference was in the actor's portrayal, is that when the boy goes to put the lotion on her, instead of being excited, he was totally grossed out. Because it's a 10-year-old girl.
Awesome.
Or it looks like a 10-year-old, but she was actually 500 years old. I also made sure that she stated how old she was, like every other word. Just to put the point across that I am not 10, you know? But it was but that's the thing, is it's such a good show, and I'm worried that a lot of people didn't see it because it was kind of questionable in that way, or it had that kind of cloud hanging over it. And it really is a good show and has a great story, and I was very excited to get to play Nina because she was awesome. Yeah.
What was it like playing Call from Charlie?
Oh, that was fun. It was fast. We did that one in like a day, I would say. That was the lower voice.
Yeah.
That one was fun. Yes.
Dance of the Vampire Buck. There's no hope for a second season, right?
I don't know. I'm glad you're a girl when you've seen it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Here's the thing with second seasons, you guys. If you ask an actor or director, do we want a second season? Yeah. But we never know what's going on the Japanese side. Because, like, we have no pull on that whatsoever. Right, so there's a possibility. I don't know, is there a manga out? Do you guys know?
Yeah, there is.
So as long as the manga continues, there's always a hope that it will. As long as the manga's going, then there's a hope that they will have another season. You never know how it's going to go, because there's shows that I wish had gotten second and third seasons that didn't. And then there's shows that have like 8 seasons, and I'm like, why? You know, and it just depends. I guess what I would say is, like what I told all the fairy tale guys, because you know we did fairy tale the whole first season, and what I would go tell everyone is, if you really love a show and you'd like to see a second season, the best thing that you can do is buy the disc. Because while Netflix is great and the Funimation website is great and all those things are great, and there's certainly fabulous ways for you to get to see a lot of anime inexpensively, if it's a show you love, buy that disc, because the way that they go off to decide whether or not they're going to buy more of said show or buy a second season of that show is how the first show season is sold. So like, if people don't buy the discs, like they don't keep track of how many watches there are on Netflix or how many watches there are on the internet. It depends on how many people buy the actual disc. So I was telling all the fairy tale fans, like, please, just go buy the disc. Please buy the disc. And sure enough, they did. Enough people bought the disc. They I'm so excited.
like merchandise and everything else?
I don't know about the merchandise stuff, because that's usually done by outside companies that we kind of work with. But I know for like the actual shows. And it just depends. It depends on Japan, and whether or not it was popular enough there to, you know, because when it comes down to it, to them, I mean, it's still, to the Japanese, it's still a business, and so they're like, they're not going to create something that they don't think is going to pay them back for it. You know what I mean? Like, they need to make their money back. So, hopefully, I would love it. I'd be all about it, because I thought that was a brilliant show. So I hope so. Yes, ma'am.
What would you do if your father said, hey, I want to go to voice acting with you?
I would love it if my dad would voice act. For those of you that don't know, my dad is from Spain. And he talks like this. Still, after 30-something years in the United States, he has a very thick accent. Monica, what are you doing? You come here. I would love for him to voice act. In fact, there were several times on School Rumble, I played a Lara Gonzalez, the luchadora. I would call him and I'd be like, all right, Dad, let me give you this line, and I need to hear how you would say it, so that I could get the accent correct and the intonation correct, because all Lara was really a female version of my dad. Like, I would think, how would my dad say this? Okay, this is how I'm going to talk. I would love for him to, and I would love for my mom to. My mom's got this little voice. Hi, how are you doing? I'm Jonathan. Like, you totally need to voice act. My brothers too. I've tried to get them into it, but for some reason they're not into it. They'd rather work in insurance.
I think you have more fun if you're a voice actor.
Yeah, I guess it's not everybody's dream. Yeah.
How was it like working on Mega Zone 2-3?
Oh, Mickey Zone 2-3 was great.
Oh yeah, I was asking about that.
It's been fun. When we were at ADV, they had a string of like older shows that they kind of brought back and dubbed. It was really, really cool because I think what happens, especially now, is that people tend to forget the older shows. It's like there's a younger wave of anime fans, which is awesome. But we, as the older wave of anime fans, need to remind them that, hey, there's good stuff that came out before 2010. You know what I mean? Like, because like I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, these Italia girls, I think it was the panel yesterday, I was like, these Italia girls would love pre-tier. They would love D and Angel, but half of them haven't even heard of it. And I'm like, oh, I gotta tell them. So there's some older shows, and so that's what I felt with these shows. These are the old school shows. These were like, you know, from the 80s
I wasn't
and
even born
70s.
in Mega Zone 2-3.
Right.
I watched it.
And like I grew up watching Robotech. So I had my little Lisa Hayes doll. I loved Robotech. So when we did Macross, and I got to play Misa Hayase, which is technically Lisa Hayes, it was like a dream come true. I was like, holy moly, this is like childhood totally turned back around. But Eve was fantastic. I mean, who doesn't want to be like this awesome pop star that everybody's involved with and loves and wants to be like? And oh, it was awesome. I felt pretty special. Not gonna lie. Yes, ma'am.
Was it hard to do the Renge Flora?
Renge was not hard at all because I adapted the scripts for Oron. I did it under a different name just in case everybody hated it. I could be like, you need to talk to that Dorothy chick because I don't know. Boo. And then if they loved it, I'd be like, that was me. Thankfully, everybody seems to like it, so I think I'm good now. But I actually adapted the script, and J. Michael Tatum ended up working working with me on them. I think his boyfriends would like that very much. So we worked on those together. So by the time I went into audition, I had already seen all of Oron in Japanese, and I had already written some of the episodes. So, and Caitlin Glass is the director. She also played Haruhi. When I went in, she asked me who I wanted to audition for. She's like, you want to audition for Honey? No. Okay, well, you want to audition for Haruhi? Who do you want to audition? Renge? She's like, all right. So I did my audition, and then the last cue was, all it said was OM, which stands for open mouth, laugh. And I was like, yes. Because I was the only one, and like most voice actors, or I would say all of the other voice actors had not gotten the opportunity to see the show, and so I'm assuming they went in and went, ha ha ha, or ha ha. I went in and went, and she was like, oh, well, thank you. And I was like, yes. So when they called me, I had to act surprised. I was like, oh, for Reiki? Really? Little did they know I'd already been writing lines for myself for 2 weeks. The chair. But yeah, Renge was fabulous. And Renge and I have a lot in common, and she's kind of my homage to all of the fangirls I've met at different conventions over the years. You know what I mean? I took a little part of all the glomping and the crying and the bossy and the yelling, and I put it all together and made it into this Renge. And I was like, I love her because I think that she annoys you. Like, she pisses you off. She does some things that you're like, whoa. But she's just lovable enough that you can't help but feel bad for her if something bad happens. And she means well. And it made me very excited when she cosplayed as Quan, and I actually knew who it was because I had done Rasafan. I was like, she's Quan! I know who that is! But it was a great show. I love that show. Still very proud of my picture catcher line. Yes.
I found out that Funimation recently got rights to Pre-Tier. Do you think that they might be re-releasing it?
They did release it already, didn't they?
Maybe they did. I don't know. Unfortunately, whatever happens licensing and releasing wise, I'm clueless.
No, that's an ADV, but they actually got the rights to
I thought they did
do
already.
Pre-Tier again.
I thought they were going to
You never know. I mean, it's very possible that I could see, we've got a lot on our plates right now, so I wouldn't see them redubbing anything right now. But I'm sure they would certainly release it. You know, because I think that's one thing that's really great about Funimation is some of the studios that have sacrificed and had to, go under or whatever. Funimation's been really good about trying to pick up those titles and offer them as the save bundles that are cheaper, but so that they're still out there, so you guys can still get them. There's still a couple of shows like Princess 9 that I'm like, somebody save Princess 9! Because it's really hard to find a disc or find it anywhere.
It's a 5.1 remix too.
Yeah, it needs a lot of help. It's kind of old, so yeah. But that's the thing is that, you never know what they're going to pick up. So it's very possible, I'm sure they'll at least do some fancy release, if not.
We already own it, the ADV one, all of it already. So.
Too. It's probably going to be cheaper now than when you bought it the first time. That's what's scary.
$30 a disc.
There'll probably be extras. They'll put more extras on it, I bet. They said no.
What was probably the most awkward, random, or just what the hell thing you ever had to record or translate, in your opinion?
Recording wise, probably all of Panty and Stocking.
Yes.
There's sometimes I'd walk in there and read it and go, you really want me? Okay, I'll say it. That one there was some whoa moments there, but I loved it. I especially loved saying all the horrible, filthy things and watching the faces of the directors because they were always like, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, it's in the script. What do you do?
You have to say it.
I had a weird moment recording Princess 9 actually because we had, like I was talking to you earlier about moving with the characters and how you really can hear it on the microphone.
Newspaper.
Yeah, well, it was scripts that Matt Greenfield had like rolled up and taped to form a bat because Princess 9 is a baseball show. And then we had one of those squishy stress balls that was our baseball. Now, when you pitched, you didn't actually throw the baseball because that would make a cut and ruin your take. But we would still use it to pitch so that we'd get the noise of like, instead of just that. So we would do that, and then I would use my character is a tennis star who turns into a baseball player, so I had to use it as a tennis racket and as a baseball bat. Well, there was one time where Izumi was going up to bat, and it was one of her first games, and she was trying to impress everybody with her awesome baseball skills, so I was going to impress the director with my awesome swinging ability. And I swung so hard, I knocked over the microphone, the recording equipment, everything on the floor. So now it's Sentai or former ADV. There's somewhere there is a track of me going, Thankfully I didn't break the microphone because those things are expensive. But that was definitely a weird moment. I also had some weird moments in playing in Peacemaker Kurogane. If you guys have seen it, I play Saizo, a very angry pig. And this was the time when, at a time when ADV was having a lot of Japanese guests come in from like the studios and stuff to like show them that we were working on these fabulous titles, and Gonzo had come in to see how we were doing and to watch some of our Peacemaker recording. I don't know why they decided to bring them in while I was in the studio. Because they could have, Lucy Christian had all these lines. All these people had lines. Instead, they brought them in while I was in the booth. And what was I doing? All right, Monica, let's go to Q153. Okay. Nice to meet you. Like spit everywhere. And I was like, oh, this is terrifying. But yeah, so there's a lot of people in Japan that think all I do is pigs. Yeah.
What is the worst bomb another voice actor has ever left you?
Oh dear.
If you guys don't know what bombs are, they're usually like little surprises that the actor will leave before you. Like, so if somebody comes in first, like say on Panty and Stocking, like I would come in before Jamie and I would leave horrible things for her and she would laugh. I can't think of any offhand. People don't really bomb me very much because I'm so focused in the booth, I don't hear them. Because I'm paying attention to like what's going on in scene and thinking over my line. So half the time the humor is lost because then the director and the engineer are laughing and I'm like, what happened? You didn't hear that? No, oh, we'll play it again and then it's not funny anymore. I leave bombs for people on occasion. I left one for Aaron Disney were accused him of hitting on me and being creepy. It was in Corpse Princess, I think. Wait, not Corpse Princess. One where I had the big. Anyway, but yeah, there's a couple of them. I can't think of any offhand, but there have been some good ones. Unfortunately, I'm not usually the target of those. I'll let you know though. I'll keep it on tabs and see. Yes.
How often do you get called in for retakes?
It depends. Usually if we have like, they call them pickups, and usually if we have a pickup, I'm in usually, I guess, it depends, but at least once a month, if not once a week. So whenever you go in, they'll just say, you need to go to Studio C because they have a pickup for you, blah, blah, blah. In the case of Dragon Ball Z Kai,
Oh yeah.
we had a lot of pickups because it's Nicktoons.
CW actually.
Well, CW was after Nicktoons. First we had Nicktoons, and they had their limits on what you could say and what you couldn't say. So we had to change some things for them. Then it went to the CW, and their list was even tighter. Yeah, it was really, really hard. So we had to go back and re-record a lot of stuff. For Nicktoons, the one that I thought was the weirdest was Bulma was talking about Namek. She was stuck on Namek, and she said something about, I hate this stupid planet.
Oh, no.
And they made us change that line. Like I had to come in and change the line because hating a planet is not green. I wasn't littering. I wasn't running around throwing carbon monoxide in the air or anything. I just said I hated this stupid planet, and they didn't feel that was appropriate. I can't remember. I think I said something about stupid Krellin, or I called somebody else stupid. That's okay, but not the planet. Even though it's a fictitious planet named Namek. Yeah. So I can't even remember what they made me say, but it was something like that. It was not very. So every once in a while it happens. On some of the co-pro stuff, like Dragon Age and the stuff that we're working on, where we're working with Japanese animators, where we're like coming up with a story or bringing the story, and they're like animating it. Some of those you'll get called in more often, and usually it's with a little more emergency. It's a little more important. Like you have to get in there faster because there's people that are waiting on that line. So there's been a couple of times for those where I'll have to like drive up to Funimation to go back and leave. Yay, thanks for that. But usually it's not too bad. Usually pickups are because of language stuff that's going on the air. Dead Man Wonderland had a couple of them, not for me, because I've never seen anything bad. That's sweet. But I know that, I think Adult Swim bought like 2 episodes of Dead Man Wonderland, 2 or 3 episodes of Dead Man Wonderland, and watched them and went, yeah, we're gonna put this on Toonami, it's great. Then, when they decided to buy the rest of it, they actually watched it and went, oh, whoa. This isn't like the 3 episodes, and we're like, well, it's got a story, it's going to grow and continue into something. So we had to go back and change some things, which made it that much less bad. So if you want to see it, even with the bleeps. So if you guys want to see the unedited version, definitely, buy the DVD or watch it on. Yeah, or you can actually see it, I think, on the Funimation site too.
It's not considering what Adult Swim shows that they would make you censor certain things like that. Because they showed some of the most really ridiculous.
Evidently, it's okay for their shows. It's not okay for anybody else's show. So, like, they're really careful about bleeping, and I was surprised that they left some of the stuff in that they did. But then once it got to, like, where Hummingbird comes in and stuff, that's when they started going, well, we need to change some of this, because it's a little too risque. That's why whenever people are like, we need to get Fanny and Stocking on Adult Swim, I'm like, oh, guys. And sometimes they show up on the screen, like it actually says the curse word. I'm like, I don't know. I would watch it just to hear beep 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 beep. I'm like,
Speaking of Dead Man Wonderland, Marcel played as Shiro.
I loved Shiro. No spoilers, anybody? I absolutely loved her. That was one of those times when I went into the studio and I was like, I didn't audition for Shiro. The Psychos I didn't audition for. I think I auditioned like right before I got it. Like it was one of those things where I think Joel was trying not to use me because he uses me a lot. So he was trying to use somebody else, and he kept trying new people and trying other people and trying other people, and finally he's like, will you just come read this real quick? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so I came in and I saw the little white unitard and the boxing gloves, and I was like, what is this? He's like, well, here's the deal, and he told me all about it, and I read that first scene where she first meets Ganta, and he's like, I want her to sound a little detached, a little deer in headlights, but I don't want her to be full-on crazy psycho. She needs to be cute, and we need to like her, but we need to know that she's not all there. I was like, okay, sweet, this is my bread and butter, let's do this. So I did the whole like, I'm cute, but kind of weird thing, you know, like just a little. And yeah, like 2 days later I started recording, and I absolutely love her. I love characters like that have a secret, and I love characters like that have different facets of their personality, because, you know, you had Shiro and you had the Wretched Egg that were two very different people. And to me, that's really, really cool to get to play all those. It's like having 3 characters in one, with that show. I had 3 totally different characters in one person, which was really, really, really fun. I'm getting goosebumps. It was so much fun. And it's a good show. Like, every once in a while, a show will come around, and it's not to say that the other ones aren't, but every once in a while, a show will come around that you're like, that's different. Like, at least that's something I haven't seen in the last 2 years, because I love harem shows. I'm not gonna hate on the harem shows because they keep me employed. But, like, it was nice to have something that wasn't a harem show where nobody showed their boobies unless they were getting shot up. You know, like that's cool. But that kind of stuff, it was a good show and I really enjoyed it. And plus I got to work opposite Greg, who's a friend of mine. And we don't get to play opposite each other because we both have such weird voices, but it worked in this one. Since we were middle schoolers, we're like, 2 middle schoolers? Greg and Monica. Like, great. They're like 3 times older than most middle schoolers, but whatever. But it was a lot of fun. I love that show.